Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm 12 Kyle. Check this out. On this podcast, I'm going to make an attempt to describe for you a cultural phenomenon from the 1990s. It's kind of one of those things where you had to have been there, but if you didn't go there and you know somebody that did, everybody had a story. That's right. I'm talking about Freaknik. Now, I know you're wondering, what the hell is Freaknik? Again, it's a cultural phenomenon. Everybody has a story. Here's mine. We'll drop the theme music and let's get the podcast jumping. Let's get it. Welcome back. As I mentioned in the intro, I'm talking about Freaknik. My story. I guess I probably should start at the beginning. Freaknik was actually started in 1983 as a picnic. It was going to be a celebration between the students at the AUC, what we call the Atlanta University Center schools. Those were all historically black colleges. They were Morris Brown, Clark Atlanta University, Spelman College, and Morehouse College. And so it started back in 1983, where it was just going to be this celebration, just a picnic, if you will, and a party. Now, obviously, I wasn't there in 83. I was somewhere coloring, right? So nonetheless, I remember being in college in 1993, right? And I remember one of my teammates at South Carolina State University, shout out to my alma mater, they came to me and they said, yo, you gotta hit Freaknik next year. And I was like, well, what is Freaknik? It was like, man, it's this big ass party. It's like Woodstock for black college students. I'm like, word? A black Woodstock? Are you serious? And I was like, well, where is it? It was like, it was in Atlanta. And so South Carolina State University is only 3.5 hours from Atlanta. So I was like, that's perfect. It would be perfect for me to go and have a good time. And so that was, they were just coming off that trip. And, I had heard rumblings about this Freaknik, but I mean, like, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anything. So fast forward to the spring of 1994. And the reason why I, even came up with this topic to talk about is that I always associate Freaknik with the NFL draft. I know that sounds strange, but Freaknik would always fall on the weekend of the NFL draft. Subsequently, the NFL draft is coming up this weekend at the time of this recording. So that's how I came to this topic. Nonetheless, it's the, spring of 94. And, my friends were like, yo, you need to get your stuff together. We're going to roll to Atlanta. I'm like, all right, cool. And I had my car. And so, the biggest thing I had to do really was tell my mom. I wasn't going to ask her because I'm in college. You don't have to ask your mom anything. You just got to say like, yo, this is where I'm going. I'll be okay. And keep in mind, I didn't have a cell phone. So it was 94. I didn't have a cell phone in 94, nor a pager. So I remember making the phone call, right? So I call home. And my mom answers the phone and we're talking. And I said, hey, Mom, I'm going to Atlanta this weekend. And she paused and she said, okay, well, what's going on in Atlanta? And I said, I'm going to Freaknik. And she paused again and she said, what the hell is a Freaknik? I really couldn't even describe it to her. To be honest, I don't know what I said after that. I just said, oh, it's a party, kids in college, HBCUs, just getting together, whatever. And she said, okay, well, be safe. Let me know when you get there. Let me know when you get back. So I don't even think I'm pretty sure I didn't call her when I got there. I'm pretty sure I did call her once I got back because I called her collect. Shout out to collect calls. Nonetheless, to be honest, I didn't know how to answer her question. Freaknik had, like I said, had been something that I heard about. There was a buzz on our campus about Freaknik and, the fact that it was a place where you could go and kick it and hang out in Atlanta. And, Atlanta's this big city and, it's buzzing at the time. And, it was supposed to be one big party. And like I said, the Black College Woodstock, if you will. That's how it was described to me. So I was determined to go see for myself. And to be honest, it had been a long semester for me. We had just finished spring football practice. Final exams were coming up. And to be honest, I needed some time to, let my hair down. I was single. Wasn't in any relationships. So, I was ready to mingle. I was ready to get out there and have some fun. I'm a man of the people. So, so I packed up the bags, jumped in the car, and me and a couple of my teammates, we rode down. I stayed with one of my teammates, in Atlanta. And this wasn't my first trip to Atlanta, but, I tell anybody, I live here in Atlanta. I've been here for, at the time of this recording, it's been 20 years, almost 21 years now. I moved to Atlanta for two reasons, Freaknik and a stripper named Seabreeze at the Playboy Palace. Shout out to the Playboy Palace. But that's another story for another day. But yeah, one of the major reasons why I moved to this city was because of Freaknik. So here's my story. So again, this wasn't my first trip to Atlanta, but I had, fallen in love with the city or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go have a good time. And, looking back on it, I knew that this was going to be something special because, again, there was just a huge buzz around the corner. And it was like when we were driving to Atlanta, like everybody that we were passing by on the highway, they were going in the same direction we were going. So we were all headed, east or west, if you will, to Atlanta. And so I was like, okay, I'm seeing these cars with, girls and stuff. And I'm like, oh, snap. And, everybody's headed there. So this is definitely going to be dope. And what's weird is, like, I remember, like, when we first got there, my teammate who we were staying at his crib, he lived in this apartment complex. We pull up to to his apartment complex and somebody's rolling out a yellow tape. The Atlanta Police Department is rolling out a yellow tape. There's a body on the ground and a white sheet covering. Okay. Apparently somebody had gotten stabbed or shot or both. I don't know. I didn't even ask questions. Nonetheless, I was like, okay, this is not good. The place where we were staying. But I wasn't there for that. I wasn't there for the body and chalk. I was there for the Freaknik. Nonetheless, so we get there and I'm like, okay, let's kick it. And what I found is that, like, it was just, I guess really to describe it, it was one big ass party. And the cool part about it was wherever you were, that's where the party was. You didn't necessarily have to be in a club to, really appreciate what was going on. I mean, there were droves and droves and droves of people, young black college kids just like me. And and not everybody was from HBCUs. We met a lot of women and dudes, from PWIs, if you will, white schools. But they were all black, and they all came to kick it, right? So it was just one big, literally one big ass party. I remember, we got there, and I think this was like the first day, so that was like that Friday, and no, that was Saturday. No, it was Friday. I'm sorry, Friday. And so I parked my car near what used to be Turner Field, or what's now what used to be Fulton County Stadium, which is now what used to be Turner Field, which is now where Georgia State plays. But that's another story for another day. And we were going to walk from there to Piedmont Park for a free concert, right? And Snoop was supposed to be performing, and some other people. I can't even remember some of the acts. I know that this group that had a huge buzz at the time, some local cats, they were supposed to be opening up. The name of the group, Outkast. So Outkast is opening up this concert. And what's funny is that I remember Outkast was supposed to be opening up for the concert, and their debut album, Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music, dropped the following week. And so they had already had, I want to say Players Ball was already out. Players Ball was a smash. And so people were jamming to it. So anyway, we parked the car. Me and my boys were walking. And to be honest, I don't know how far a walk that is from Turner Field to Piedmont Park. My guess is it's about 3 or 4 miles. Man, my Jordans were killing me because I wasn't prepared to just walk, because you couldn't, they had some of the streets blocked off, so they really encouraged kids to walk. So we're walking, and then I remember we took a detour and we turned down the street called Auburn Avenue. And when we turned the corner, I kid you not, I had never seen that many black people in one place. I mean, imagine a huge city street and it's crawling with people. And I mean, to the point where you were almost like trying to walk through a crowded club. It was that many people on the street. And I'll post pictures on my Instagram. It was just that crazy. And you got, when we were walking, we saw girls, hanging out of cars, people who had drop tops, they were hanging out, and girls were just, hey, speaking or whatever like that. And it was really, really dope. And so I saw all these people, and I remember hearing that night later on the news that that particular year, Freaknik drew 250,000. Now, the previous year, they said that Freaknik drew 80,000 people, the year that I missed. And then 94, they said that it was 250,000 people. I don't know where they got those numbers from. It was easily about 500,000 people. I mean, it was crazy. I'd never seen that many black people in one particular place in my entire life. And it was crazy. I mean, between the music, the food, I mean, any and everything you wanted on the street. If you wanted to eat, you wanted something to drink. Now, I didn't drink at the time, but whatever you wanted, if you wanted to buy gear, it was all love. Everybody was just having a good time. Girls were just pulling you, talking to you, taking pictures. The funny thing about this particular time was technology, right? Technology was a little bit different. Of course, this is 94, so there weren't any cell phones. There weren't any, Instagrams that you could have done. There was no Twitters for you to post stuff onto. So it was just different. So anyway, so we're walking down Auburn Avenue, and I mean, like I said, it's at least 500,000 people in Atlanta. easily, and it had to be at least 100,000 people on Auburn Avenue that day. And it's funny because like sometimes now I'll go and I'll drive down Auburn Avenue and I'll just have that memory, man, of just all of those people in that one place. And it was a beautiful thing. And so we were walking down the Piedmont Park, and I never forget, like, I remember like you would see celebrities. I saw like a couple of the cat like Chris Webb and Juwan Howard from the Fab Five. You saw entertainers. You saw a lot of rappers and stuff. I saw Too Short out there. And I remember Snoop Dogg. Snoop was he was standing on the corner, and like he literally pulled out a piece of paper. He was rolling up some weed, right? And there had to be a cop from APD, Atlanta Police Department. No, he had to be at least 10 feet away, and he's watching Snoop the whole time. He didn't say a word. I was like, yo, this place is crazy. So we go to the concert. The concert's off the chain. So we leave the concert. And again, it's just one big ass party. So we get in a car, and it's just with so many people, you're just stuck in traffic. I mean, like, and traffic literally was not going anywhere. Again, one big ass street party. It didn't matter if you were on Piedmont. It didn't matter if you're on Peachtree Street. It didn't matter if you're on Campbellton Road. The party was wherever you were, and cats had, systems in their cars. So you literally, if you got a system, you got that boom, you literally could start. I mean, like, I'm trying to paint this picture. Just imagine being in traffic, and the traffic literally is not moving. I don't mean like your regular rush hour in your city. I'm talking about where the traffic would be gridlocked to the point where you're not moving an inch for at least an hour. At least an hour. And you might get up the block depending on where you are. So the party really was wherever you were, because you could technically get out of your car, run into the convenience store, get some food or get some snacks, jump back in your car, turn the music up, and girls just come up and just start talking to you. So again, it was just one big ass party. Now there were a couple of things that stood out about Freaknik. One, the music. Oh man, the music was I'll be the first to admit, prior to coming to South Carolina State, I was not a fan of what we called Miami bass, booty music. I was not a fan of, 2 Live, and 2 Live was okay. I recognized them for what they were, but I wasn't really a fan of the down south booty shaking music. But shortly after my arrival at South Carolina State, I grew to appreciate, a good shake song, and, sweated out more than a few perms, back in the day. So it was, so that music was so key as far as Freaknik was concerned, because for some reason, if you had that music playing, and once you started playing it, girls just started gyrating or twerking, if you will. We didn't even call it twerking, but that's what they were doing. Like, so you could be riding down the street, and then you got your music going, and the girls just start popping that thing. Stop. So it was so seeing that it was almost, I mean, like, looking back on it now, it was almost like somebody pushed a button. Like, as soon as I pressed the button for the music to play, you start twerking. I mean, like, girls would just start twerking. You didn't even have to ask them to twerk. They just started twerking. And so we caught an eyeful, we caught an eyeful. I'll be honest, Freaknik, especially that particular first year in 94, I fell in love. Man, I fell in love at least about 20 times, man. I'm talking love at first sight. Like, yo, can I? And I'm not even, anybody knows me knows, like, I've never been, spit, dumbass pickup line, because that's never been me. I've never said one pickup line to a woman. But it was so many girls that the girls would approach you like, hey, how you doing? Where you, of course, the obvious question, where you from? Where you go to school? And then you start a conversation from there. But like they would approach you and it'd be so cool because like I was always the laid back in the cut cat. And, the conversations would go. But the thing about it was like, if you were stuck in traffic or you were just kicking it and you started talking to a girl, you better get her phone number or something because odds are likely you were never going to see her again because it was just so much stuff going on. So I remember we went to a party that night and at Club 559, a place where where all kind of crazy shit has always happened. And we didn't even go in the party. The party literally was in the parking lot. I mean, a straight parking lot pimping. That's all we did the whole night. We parking lot pimped the whole night. So we didn't even go in the club.
The party was in the parking lot. You know what I'm saying? And so in a lot of ways, Freaknik kind of reflected that same aspect because it was really just about inhabiting your environment. You know what I'm saying? Like creating your own environment. You might be too young to get in the club, so you're gonna party in the parking lot. You're gonna ride by, you really in high school, but you're gonna ride by with your friend and y'all don't act like y'all supposed to be out there. So that was going on in Atlanta at certain clubs, even before Freaknik became a real big thing.
That was back then when you could park like pimp. So even if you didn't go in, the party was in the park.
There was so many people, man, where they can't really move. Freaknik was like that. And then outside, it's a party for people who can't get in. Whatever parking lot was around the club during Freaknik, they were packed too. People was out there. Remember now, cars are, systems are everywhere. That's big. You got guys who would rather be outside flexing with their system than actually going in a club. And they everywhere. They out there competing. So it's a car show outside while the club scene is going down inside at the same time.
And it was crazy. And I enjoyed it. So the music was a huge part of what Freaknik was about. Again, you got exposed to now, and don't get me wrong, it wasn't like the music from up north was phased out, but the booty shake Miami bass music was the Atlanta sound, if you will, because at that particular time, Atlanta, again, Outkast was about to come out, but Atlanta was known for their local rappers. But, Jermaine Dupri hadn't, settled, hadn't started So Def jumping just yet. And, the other staples from Atlanta had not really been instrumental. It was just, the local guys who were really, really dope. But, outside of Atlanta, people really didn't know about them. So booty shake music, set the tone, if you will, because, again, it got girls to twerk. Another thing that stood out about Freaknik is that we were able to get a lot of information without technology. And what I mean by that is that, like, there would be flyers, there would be, postings or whatever like that. But again, there's no internet. So there's no cell phones. There's no, Twitter. There's no Facebook. We didn't even have email. So like it was strictly on word of mouth. It was on word of mouth that Freaknik was happening. It was on word of mouth of where the parties were going to be. So like you might meet some girls and you might say, okay, well, hey, what's up for the night? And then, we're going to party at 559. Okay, you know what? Bet we're going to. We'll meet you there. In fact, we'll have the drinks for you when you get there. It was just like that. So it was one of those things where, we did a lot without very little, room for technology because we just simply didn't have any. So it was plenty of times where, you might, and to be honest, looking back on it, I really didn't see a lot of people from school, even though I knew a lot of people went, because Atlanta's such a huge city and Freaknik was just pretty much everywhere that, again, the party was where I remember we were on Campbellton Road and in the SWATs, and we were at a gas station, and the party was at the gas station. Girls were twerking, and we were dancing in the middle of the street because you couldn't go anywhere, and we were stuck at that gas station for 2 hours. 2 hours, and we couldn't even get back on what was it, 285. We couldn't even get on 285 because we couldn't go anywhere, and we were okay with that. And it's just like, hey, the party's right here. We don't have to worry about going to a club or whatever the case may be. So we got a lot of information without the advent of technology. And lastly, it was just the one thing about particularly those early days of Freaknik, at least for me. It was about fun, man. I mean, like, we generally had a great time. That first year was, oh my God, it was unreal. I don't think I've ever had that much fun on that little bit of sleep. Because I'm going to tell you, I didn't sleep. I think I might have slept a total of 4 hours that whole weekend. Total. Because you didn't want to stop. Like, anytime you felt like your body was going to crash or whatever like that, somebody say, okay, well, hey, we're going over here. Then you go over there. Then you might sleep. You might doze off in the car, but I was driving, so no big deal to me. So yeah, it was just about fun, and everybody was having fun. Everybody was just there to have a good time. And again, you had students from all across the country, and we all converged on Atlanta just to have a good time. And then things changed. Sometimes, things can be too good. In the subsequent years, after I know 93 was dope. 94 was incredible. 95 was great. 96, things started to change a little bit. The reason being is that, the city of Atlanta really didn't want all these black kids in Atlanta. And I don't know if it was so much about the black kids, but they didn't want this. I mean, like, because they had no, looking back on it, like they really had no contingency for this, because they didn't know how many kids were going to come. I think I read somewhere that they were caught by surprise about, what happened in 93 as far as the numbers growing from what they were to like 80,000. Well, they really were surprised when it went from 80,000 to 500,000. I mean, like, so you don't have any contingency plans for this. So the city really didn't want the kids here. They didn't want us here, and it was just, and to be honest, looking back on it, I get it, right? The gridlock was crazy. Like, I heard a story about an ambulance that was trying to transport someone from the hospital, and they literally had to go 2 blocks, right, to get them to the hospital. And it took them 3 hours to go 2 blocks. And I'm not talking these long city blocks. I'm talking about just 2 blocks. Like, they literally could have got the patient out of the ambulance and rolled him there faster than that. And so, the traffic was just crazy. I mean, like, so the city came up with this plan, like, hey, we're going to make sure that, you guys don't have our city on lock, if you will. And, I'd heard stories about, people who were, residents of the city, and they were actually, leaving Atlanta, so that they could get out of town when Freaknik came, like people who would literally leave the city when Freaknik was coming. So, and looking back on it now, as an adult, could I blame them? No, I couldn't blame them. But the city decided to do this. Okay, well, what we'll do is we'll block off the main exits. And so we know that there's a party here. We know that there's parties here. There's parties there. And everything is centralized downtown. So what we'll do is we'll block off the exits downtown. And what that'll do is just push these kids to the outskirts, to the suburbs. And keep in mind, if you're not really familiar with the city, then you're stuck. I mean, literally, you're stuck because nobody wants to be, in the northern suburbs when all the action is downtown. And that's what they did in 96 and 97. And so, they made sure that they, now if you were with someone that lived here or you knew about the city, you could get around that. But you had to take some of the side streets and back streets. And, to be honest, for some people, by the time they got where they were going, they were tired as hell for sitting in traffic, because the traffic was even worse on the side streets. But they would rather you tie up the side streets than tie up, the interstates, because the interstates in 94 and 95 were just, they were impassable. Like you literally could be sitting on I-85 for 4 hours just because, we were just in the middle of interstate, just chilling, just having a big ass party right then on the spot. So, again, it was bad. And, I mentioned the music. One other thing that got bad was it got ratchet. Yeah, it got really, really ratchet. Here's what I'll say. There was a situation where, you got the music, you got the twerking, and, girls were just showing everything. It wasn't like, and I'm not talking about like it's like, you're on Bourbon Street during Mardi Gras and you flash your breasts. Nah, it wasn't like that. I'm twerking. I'm on the hood of this. No, I'm out the sunroof of this Toyota Camry, and I'm twerking. And if you get close to me and you got your video camera, I might show you that I don't have any panties on. I might let you see these lips. So it was it was pretty ratchet. And that was another thing about the technology. Again, we didn't have, there was no Snapchat, there was no Facebook or Instagram Live, anything like that. So you had video cameras, and video cameras, even back then in 1995, 94, 95, 96, were relatively big. So, but a lot of stuff got filmed. And looking back on it now, a lot of those girls who were twerking and got on these videos and stuff, there's somebody's mama. Just like I'm somebody's daddy. But, I wasn't out there wilding. I'm a good, quiet guy. I'm shy. Nonetheless, it was like I said, it was really, really ratchet. And I remember, I'll never forget, I was in the parking lot of this club. I can't remember the name of the club. Somewhere in the Swats. Southwest Atlanta, and these girls were in this car, and they were kind of twerking or whatever in the window of the car. So naturally, a whole bunch of guys just surround. Because think about it, guys are just standing on the street, right, when you're driving by, and so if you're showing them a little something, they're gonna rush the car. So guys started rushing the car, and I remember the girl tried to roll her window up. And a guy stuck his hand in the window and pulled the window back, and the glass shattered everywhere. And again, now it's at least 30 guys surrounding this car. I'm watching the whole thing. He reaches his hand in the car and he snatches her herringbone chain. And I was like, oh shit, this ain't good. And so we started to hear more and more about crimes, about people breaking into stores. Again, this is supposed to be for black college students, or for black college, not necessarily students from HBCUs, but this is supposed to be for us. And, there became a local element, if you will. Now, I can't blame everybody from the city of Atlanta because I wasn't living in Atlanta at the time, but I know that everybody that I saw in this, you would come out for Freaknik and you would see high school kids, in 96, you would see grown ass men who really had kids old enough to be at Freaknik. And I'm like, bro, you old? What you doing out here like this? You know, trying to holler at these young girls. I mean, like, it was just crazy. You literally could see someone get assaulted. I mean, like, I remember seeing this girl, and from what I could tell, like, she was on the back of a flatbed, and the guy was driving, and he had a bullhorn, and he was like, hey, you know, if you want to see what she got, you know, throw some money in there. And so he basically was, you know, quietly pimping her, right? And so a couple of dudes, they're stuck in traffic. A couple of dudes threw a couple of dollars in there. She's on the back. He's got the booming system. She's twerking or whatever like that. And then next thing you know, you see just like 20 dudes rush the flatbed, and all I saw was her go down. And they were literally like trying to pull her clothes off and trying to pull her off the flick, because they were like, look, we're going to take this girl, and we're going to, if he got something to say, we'll beat him up like that. So, you know, cooler heads prevail. Some guys stopped it or whatever like that. But like assaults really were about to go down. And, you know, it was really, really dangerous. Like 95, 96, 97, it was really out of hand. And again, you're hearing stories about crimes, assaults, rapes, you know, girls were getting touched, you know, especially if you were showing a little skin, you were getting touched, felt up, whatever. And guys were just, I mean, by that time, they were just downright disrespectful. I can't even lie. To the point where I remember telling my girlfriend at the time in 96, I was like, you're not going to Freaknik. And she was like, okay. And she was like, well, why are you going? I was like, well, I'm a dude. That's different. Oh, to be so young and dumb. But yeah, it wasn't cool, man. And seeing that kind of stuff, and then again hearing about the crimes and stuff, it just really put a bad taste in my mouth. So like 96, 97, by the time 97 rolled around, I was like, you know what? This is it. I'm done. This is, you know, because after that, it wasn't fun anymore. And I remember, let me go back to 94. I remember, oh man, I met this really, really cute girl. She went to Howard. I can't even remember her name, right? And it's funny because she and some of her girlfriends were staying at this house over down the street from Georgia Tech. Now, what's interesting is that, like, if you're not really familiar with the city of Atlanta, Georgia Tech and where we were was, you know, all the shenanigans for Freaknik was on one side of the interstate. Georgia Tech was on the other side. So like when you go on the other side of the interstate to the Georgia Tech side, you know, it was pretty calm. It really wasn't a lot of Freaknik action going on over at Georgia Tech. Nonetheless, I met this really, really cool girl from Howard, and you know, she was like, well, you know, we need to stay in touch. I mean, we had a great conversation. She was like, we need to stay in touch. She was like, I'm really kind of feeling you. And I mean, like, I was kicking it on some cool out shit. I wasn't even really trying to kick it with her like that. But I just remember, you know, exchanging phone numbers. I put the number in my pocket and subsequently lost it. I don't know what happened. I don't even know where that girl is. I don't know what happened to her. But you know, it just, shit like that just happened at Freaknik. It was just like you had to be there. And so nonetheless, by the time 97, 98 rolled around, it was a wrap for me. I moved to Atlanta in the summer of 97. So Freaknik 98 was the last time your boy Freaknik. And I remember some friends came in town and it was like, yo, let's go to Club Esso. So we was going to go to Club Esso. So all the streets were blocked off. So I knew this one little street that could get me closer to Club Esso. We could park up and post up and parking lot pimp for a little while and go inside. And we get to Club Esso, and they were, and the guy at the door was like, he was like, yeah, it's gonna be $30 to get in. Huh? $30? Man, hell with this club. Because that's the thing, like the Freaknik parties weren't expensive. I mean, because it's college kids. So at the most you might pay, I don't know, $7 to get into a party, maybe $5. The parties were dirt cheap, so looking back on it now, I mean, like, it didn't cost nothing to get into parties because, they wanted you to come in, because if not, you could have a club at capacity and your parking lot was filled with other people who couldn't get in, but they were partying in the parking lot. So, they knew at least if you got inside that you would be spending money on alcohol or whatever the case may be. But yeah, like I said, 97, 98. 98 was my last year. I didn't even go inside Club SO that particular night because I was like, I'm not paying $30 to get an SO when next week is going to be $5, because I lived here. And SO was a spot where me and my boy Jay Fresh would party all the time. So I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. So again, I think the city went above and beyond. The mayor at the time, Bill Campbell, he let it be known that no, they didn't want Freaknik here. They absolutely, city government wanted to do everything that they could not to let it happen. Of course, they couldn't tell kids not to come, but they were going to do everything in their power to make it as uncomfortable as possible. Case in point, like, in the early years of Freaknik, you could walk around and you could just be standing on the corner talking to somebody. That stopped. Like, if you were talking to somebody and the cops saw you, they would tell you to keep moving. I mean, just imagine standing in the corner. The cops like, hey, you can talk to that girl, but y'all got to keep walking. Like you could not stand on any corner in any section of the city. So again, they made it to the point where it just wasn't fun anymore. And, they wanted to do everything they could to stop it. And for the most part, they did. It wasn't fun anymore. And, I don't know if I necessarily had outgrown Freaknik, but it definitely didn't feel the same. It didn't feel like 94 or 95, right? So I'll leave you with this last story. One of my funnier moments from 94. I remember it was late, man, and it had to have been like, I don't know, about 3 a.m. And so we were supposed to be headed home, but the girls we were talking to, they were like, they wanted to go, get something from Krispy Kreme donut spot. So I was like, all right, cool. So we jumped in my car, drive over to Krispy Kreme. And so we get in there and there's these real pretty girls. And we had some good looking girls with us, but there was some even doper girls at the Krispy Kreme. So we're standing in line and I heard one girl say she went to ODU, Old Dominion University. And so this guy walks in, he's like trashed, right? And the girl had on a DKNY sweatshirt, right? And of course, it stands for Donna Karen, New York, right? So the guy walks over, he says, "Oh, I see that you're wearing a DKNY shirt. Do you know those letters represent my 4 favorite colleges?" And so the girl at this point, she's looking puzzled because she's like, I don't know what this dude is talking about. And really, this is probably the point where he should have walked away. But, he figured he was going to impress her. So he continued on. He said, D for Duke. K for Kentucky. N for Nebraska. Y for Wyoming. Man, everybody in the Krispy Kreme was on the floor rolling. Oh my God. That's one of those moments where I wish that I had a video camera because it was priceless. And like, she was just so offended that he had even approached her. Like, she couldn't even laugh, but everybody else was laughing. And he was wondering, like, why are y'all laughing? Like, I said, why for Wyoming? Duh. It doesn't start with a Y. But yeah, man, that's the cultural phenomenon that was Freaknik. That's my story. I know you could. Most of you listening probably weren't there. Some of you listening probably weren't even born. But if you know somebody that, went to Freaknik, ask them about it. I promise you, they've got a good story. Thanks for checking out the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm your boy 12 Kyle. We'll catch you guys next time. 5 G's.
Freaknik really put Atlanta on the map. You know, I mean, for whatever people might have ended up thinking about it long term, you know, in terms of the direction it might have gone and that kind of thing, Freaknik really put Atlanta on the map for that generation. And in terms of, you know, urban culture, black culture, you know, when people think of Atlanta now, it's kind of a black mecca. That came out of Freaknik. You know, people would come to Freaknik. They might have been in school in DC or Maryland or Virginia, and they came to one or two Freakniks and they were ready to move to Atlanta. And a lot of people did move to Atlanta from coming to Freaknik.